Good morning. It is 9:40 in the morning and it's September 13th. I am Leah Tate and I would love to welcome everyone to the Board of Psychology meeting this morning. And again, I apologize for the late start. We were having issues getting everyone online. I would like to ask Ms. Whitney to please call the roll, and during roll call, can you please just let us know if someone from the public is in your office space? Ms. Whitney.
Good morning. Kasuga?
Here at 1515 Clay Street, room 14, Oakland, California, 94612. There is no one here except for Ms. Rescate.
Thank you. Thank you, Cervantes. Boo?
Present, I am at 8920 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 334, and there's no other public. There are no members of the public here besides the two of us.
Thank you, Harbsheet. Maestrom?
Here at 1625 North Market Boulevard in the Eldorado Room in Sacramento.
Phillips?
Here, I'm at 8920 Wilshire Boulevard, Beverly Hills, and we have no other people present other than Mr. Fu and myself.
Thank you, Rescate.
Here, I am at 1515 Clay Street along with Dr. Kasuga. There's no one here.
Thank you, Rogers.
Here, I'm at 1625 North Market Boulevard, and there are no members of the public here.
Thank you, Tate.
Hello, I'm here and I'm located at 2888 Eureka Way, Suite 200 in Redding, California, and there are no public members here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Oh.
Dr. Tate, may I ask if the DCA moderator can promote me to my computer to a regular panelist, and then that way I will separate from Dr. Phillips, and you won't have us two together on one screen.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you could please raise your hand, that would be appreciated. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we jump into agenda item number 2, I'd like to give Ms. Whitney a few moments to explain how to earn and document your CPD credit.
Thank you. Good morning. I would like to take this opportunity to announce that the board has backfilled the CPD coordinator vacancy. Ms. Pertot just left. So beginning on September 27th, Mr. Troy Polk will be taking over the role as CPD coordinator. So we're very excited to have Mr. Polk in this new role. So back to today's meeting. Attending today's board meeting will provide you with CPD credit under category number 1, attendance at a California board meeting, or a California Board of Psychology meeting. For your CPD records, please notate today's date as September 13th, 2024, and note that we are here for a board meeting. At the end of the meeting, I will announce how many hours you can be credited. If you called into the meeting, please email bopce@dca.ca.gov. It is listed on the screen for those of you if you want to write it down. Please include your name, license number, and the phone number you used to call in. If you signed in using the computer or mobile device and you see your name as a login, your attendance will automatically be documented and you don't need to email us. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Moderator, can you please promote Dr. Kasuga? She's indicating she's not promoted at this time.
Absolutely. Dr. Kasuga, if you could raise your hand, that would be helpful. Otherwise, give me just a moment and I'll find you in the list. Thank you so much.
Perfect. We are going to take up agenda item number 2. This is public comment for items not on the agenda. The board may not discuss or take action on any matter raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Before I invite speakers to come forward for public comment, I would ask individuals making comments to not discuss the specifics, including names as to pending complaints, pending licensing applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may come before the board for a decision. And this refers to current or pending complaints and possible future complaints. Such discussions are considered ex parte communications, as they could provide information to the members that is outside of the record in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. While there may be a desire to engage in further discussion with comments presented during this time, the board may not discuss these items or take action. And this may give the impression that we are not being responsive, but these procedures are critical to ensure the compliance with the Open Meeting Act and to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. I'd like to open up public comment at this time, Mr. Moderator.
Very good. Are you starting with any particular room, or would you like to start online?
Oh, let's start online. Well, we can go. I don't think there's any public comment in any of the rooms, but so let's start online, please.
All right. We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise a hand. And I understand that at least one person in the audience was having trouble with the hand button. Please feel free to type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, and I'll acknowledge your request for comment at that point. People will be given 2 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 30-second warning before your time expires. All right, we're going to go to the list now and see if we have a request for comment. Our first request is coming from Dr. Elizabeth Winkleman. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Dr. Elizabeth Winkleman with the California Psychological Association. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Terrific. So CPA would like to request that the Board of Psychology place an action item on its agenda for its next meeting to discuss the EPPP2. Specifically, we're requesting that you consider taking an opposed position on ASPPB's decision to make EPPP2 mandatory on January 1st, 2026, to notify the ASPPB of its position and voting or appointing a delegate to vote on any related items at the ASPPB meetings, and revising any proposed regulations to require the EPPP2 only if it is no longer possible to administer the EPPP1 separate from the EPPP2. CPA has learned that a proposed bylaws change that would require ASPPB to continue to offer EPPP1 as a standalone test has been submitted for consideration at the upcoming ASPPB meeting on October 30th, and that proxy votes will be allowed. Therefore, we request that you consider holding a meeting prior to that date in order to take a position on this proposed bylaws change. At the meeting earlier this week, the California Board of Directors decided to oppose this mandatory implementation of EPPP2, and we will be sending a formal letter to ASPPB with a copy to this board. And our concerns in opposition are serious and mounting, including things that have already been discussed. There's been an FTC complaint. According
30 seconds.
Oh, okay. Other states are also starting to take positions. Research in peer-reviewed journals has raised concerns about validity and about potential disproportionate negative impact on underrepresented communities. And taking an opposed position would be in line with former conclusions by the EPPP Task Force of the Board of Psychology and the Office of Professional Examination Services. Thank you.
Thank you. And that appears to be our only request online.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And just checking, there's no public comment in any room, no public member in anyone's rooms. Okay, thank you. We're going to move to agenda item number 3.
Madam President?
Oh, yes.
Should we acknowledge the written public comment we've received? For item
I
number
didn't.
2?
Oh, I didn't see the written.
Part of it's in the hand carry folder and part of it is in the original package.
I think Dr. Phillips is referring to the letters that were submitted and that were included in our documentation, not to anything written in the chat box here at this meeting.
Oh, I see. The letters were included in our packet for our perusal, not for discussion today. But yes, we can acknowledge that they were received. They were sent to all board members regarding the EPPP 2. Is that what you're referring to, Mr. Phillips?
Yes, yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate that. Moving on to agenda item number 3. This is the executive officer recruitment and selection process. And we have today with us, Olivia.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure if President Tate froze. It looked like she had frozen on my end.
That absolutely happened.
Okay, so I'll hold off for a couple minutes.
Welcome back, President Tate.
Oh, did I get lost there? Oh, where did you guys drop off?
You were introducing me, so I can go ahead and pick it up from there.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm sorry about your lost introduction, but
No, you're fine. Thank you. And good morning, President Tate and board members. My name is Olivia Trejo, and I am the Chief of the Office of Human Resources for the Department of Consumer Affairs. Today, during today's open session, I will provide you an overview of the executive officer recruitment and selection process. We will review the duty statement and recruitment announcement to obtain your feedback and suggestions. I will begin with the executive officer recruitment and selection process at this time. Please feel free to ask any questions along the way or towards the end once I'm done. The executive officer recruitment and selection process will require 2 board members who will have the time and interest to participate in the selection process. We do plan to formally appoint a search committee in today's meeting. The search committee, which will include the 2 members, will be chosen by the board to be part of the search committee to assist with the entire recruitment activities. In today's meeting, we will have the opportunity to review and finalize the duty statement and recruitment announcement, which will be used for the executive officer advertisement. I emailed you the drafts of the duty statement and recruitment announcement on September 4th, 2024. The executive officer recruitment is typically advertised for 30 days, and it is advertised on the California Department of Human Resources platform, but may also be advertised externally, such as through the Capital Morning Report. And if you choose to advertise outside of the CalHR platform, please let me know so I can provide you the link of the position that's on CalHR's website. During the advertisement period, I or a designee will work directly with the search committee to determine application screening, interview questions, and potential interview dates. I or a designee will serve as the contact person on the advertisement and will provide the search committee with the applications received each Friday on a flow basis until the final filing date. The search committee will review and screen applications received based on the desirable qualifications to determine candidates for initial or final interviews in front of the entire board. Depending on the number of applications received, if initial interviews are recommended based on a large candidate pool, they will be conducted with the search committee first. Reference checks will be conducted for the top candidates prior to final interviews with the entire board and board members. At a next scheduled board meeting and closed session, final interviews will be conducted for the top candidates. The selection of the executive officer will require a vote by board members to select a final candidate. Upon selecting the finalists for the executive officer position, a start date and salary can be determined. The selection of the candidate must be kept confidential until candidate notifications have been completed and accepted, and the unsuccessful candidates have been notified. The selected candidate will also require criminal offender record information, also known as CORI clearance, if currently not a board employee, which will be facilitated by the Office of Human Resources. CORI is information obtained through the fingerprint submission to DOJ in response to a request for a criminal conviction review. Once the selected candidate has passed CORI, the board can work with public affairs to make the formal announcement. On the effective date of the appointment, the oath of office must be administered, which may be administered by any board member, the DCA director, or their designee, and direction on administering the oath will be provided at a later time. This concludes the executive officer recruitment and selection process, and I will afford the opportunity if you have any questions at this time.
Thank you. I see Dr. Phillips already has his hand up. But you're on mute.
I can't get my hand to go down. That's why I was up. But now I've gotten it down. And thank you for calling on me.
Any board comment on the recruitment and selection process? Mr. Moderator, can you please open up public comment regarding the recruitment and selection process?
We are open for public comment via WebEx on the recruitment and selection process. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand. And as a note to our mobile device users, you have 3 different screens and only one of them has a hand button. So you may need to tap on the ellipses button, that's the ... and cycle through your 3 different screens in order to find that hand. As always, we have a Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. You can type the word comment if you're having trouble with that hand button. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment online. Seeing no request online, I think we're ready to check the other rooms.
Thank you. Anyone have any public members in their room? I don't see any. Okay, moving on to 3B. Ms. Trejo?
Give me 1 second. So at this time, President Tate, do you have any board members or recommendations to serve as the search committee members?
I like how you put me on the...
Or if anyone wants to put their name out there, this would require a vote, and I may defer to legal to facilitate that part of it.
Well, let me ask board members first. Is anyone interested in participating on this 2-person selection committee? Okay, I'm not seeing any movement at all. I see a smile, a few smiles. Let me see. Everyone is just smiling. My first thought would be just personally Dr. Phillips, because he has the history with the Board of Psychology and has seen other EOs in the role. So that would be my first nomination. And also I'm thinking either Dr. Rogers, because she is quite detail oriented. So this may be one of those situations that would be helpful. I'm open to the discussion.
I have some questions in terms of what the time commitment would be and where typically the interviews are conducted.
So I can answer that question if okay. So we typically advertise for 30 days. So the applications would be sent to the search committee each Friday. It depends on what we receive. It could be that we get most applicants applying at the very end of the final filing date. So it would require possibly 4 or 5 hours to screen all of the applications after the final filing date. And depending on the number of candidates, it may require you to do preliminary interviews to weed out some of those that do not meet the desirable qualifications and only move forward those that you want to be interviewed in front of the entire board. My Office of Human Resources has draft interview questions already pre-made, so those can be provided to the search committee, or you may come up with your own depending on your preference. And recently, the interviews can be held virtually or in person, depending on the availability. And again, the interviews in front of the entire board, if that board meeting will be in person, then that would be the recommendation to invite those finalists to come in person to be interviewed in front of the entire board.
Thank you very much. It helps me better understand it.
You're welcome.
As long as we can do the interviews, the preliminary interviews virtually, I think I would be willing to make that commitment. I am in my grace years, so you're putting a person on the committee that may not spend much time under the, with the executive officer in the long run, but I was present for the search process for our outgoing executive officer, Ms. Sorek, and so I have a sense of the system.
Yeah, that was my initial thought too. So I appreciate you willing to make the sacrifice. Dr. Rogers, any thoughts, or anyone else like to chime in?
Thank you, Dr. Tate, for thinking of me. I always say that I stand ready to serve in whatever capacity that's needed. So I'm happy to help facilitate this process. I did have one question. I know that at some point candidates will be interviewed by the entire board once they go through this process. Would it be helpful for the selection committee to have a public member instead of 2 psychologists? I don't know, so I just wanted to throw that out there for discussion. If it's fine to have 2 psychologists, I'm happy to serve. But if it would feel more balanced to have a public member, I'm happy to step aside. Thank you.
I do know, if to the extent that it's helpful, I do know that the last time we did the selection project, that both of the interviewers were public members for the preliminary screening.
Okay, that's helpful, Dr. Phillips. Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
Mr. Fu?
Yeah, I'm just, thank you, Dr. Rogers, for bringing that up. I will say that, speaking for myself, I trust both you and Dr. Phillips to lead and identify candidates for the full interview process for finalists. And I think, speaking candidly, I think the need or desire for like one of each for balance like existed at a time when the Board of Psychology was in a different place, at least the way I see things. And so I'm more than absolutely thrilled to hear that Dr. Phillips and you are going to be leading this process, and excited to meet with the candidates that you'll bring forth, presumably at our November board meeting, or February board meeting in person. Assuming we don't, yes, because it'll be posted for 30 days at minimum. So, so I feel more than comfortable. In fact, I'm just really excited that this process is happening with the 2 of you, and also very supportive of any of my colleagues who are public members who also want to participate as well.
Go ahead, Ms. Nystrom.
I'm sorry. This is Board Member Nystrom. I'm also a public member, and I just want to echo Mr. Fu's comments that I'm very comfortable with Dr. Phillips and Dr. Rogers' doing the lead on the recruitment process, and I would second board members Tate's nomination of the two.
Madam President.
Is that a
this Anthony.
motion? Oh, sorry, Mr. Payne.
It's okay. Just a question for Ms. Trejo. I know we mentioned that the posting typically goes for 30 days. If it were to be shorter than that, would that in some way facilitate a November action item as opposed to a February action item?
Yes, the board can vote to advertise 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 30 days. So that is an option. And there's also the possibility, which may not be as convenient, is to hold a special meeting just to conduct the final interviews. So there are a few options there based on your target and your board meetings. Reducing the 30 days to a lower number is reasonable.
Sorry for interrupting you, Ms. Nystrom. It sounded like you were in the middle of perhaps making a motion regarding the selection committee.
Yes, I was going to make the motion to nominate Dr. Phillips and Dr. Rogers to the nomination committee.
Perfect. And I will second that. Let's see. Any board discussion regarding the motion? Oh, Mr. Fu?
Yes, one, fully supportive of the motion. And this is more of a question. I'm curious if we have funds remaining in our, if we are, I think the budget projections for the board this year is that we will have a surplus, a very small surplus. And I'm curious if there are boards that have used that surplus with flexibility to have an executive search firm to help with the process, particularly if we are contemplating a shortened timeline. Having had the experience with several firms, it has the wonderful opportunity to sort of identify candidates who may not necessarily be thinking about this role, but may be fantastic candidates with the skill sets. And so I'm just curious if that is something that other boards have used, and what is the process if folks are interested in potentially using a search firm?
So in my past experience, that hasn't been used, but we do share the announcement once it's posted with board staff, and we ask them to, share that with their listserv and the industry. But if we wanted to hire someone specifically or a company, the board staff would have to go through the contract process and work with business services to get that going. I'm not sure about their timeframes, so it could be a couple weeks to get through that paperwork. But we do ask the board staff to share the announcement once it's posted with the industry, their listservs that they have on record and so forth, and any other areas they think would be a good platform to put the announcement on.
Great, that's really helpful. I'm curious to hear if my fellow board members have thoughts on the need for a search firm. Typically, search firms cost, I think, the salary of the individual getting placed or some percentage of that. So it's an option that I just wanted to raise, but I'm not necessarily suggesting that we absolutely must and should.
Ms. Nystrom has a comment.
I think the idea of a search firm is a great suggestion. I do wonder on the timeline if we're looking to maybe even shorten the timeline on the search from 30 days to maybe 14 to 21 days, if adding a search firm wouldn't add to that process. If we're trying to hit a November deadline versus a February deadline. And maybe if we did a round and then if we didn't have success, then we could look at it as a backup.
Thanks, Ms. Nystrom. Dr. Phillips? You're on mute.
Sorry. I'm concerned about the cost, given that the top of the salary range is $132,000 approximately. I'm concerned that we're going to end up in a situation where we're spending somewhere between, let's say, $66,000 and $132,000 on a search firm. I'm also cognizant of the fact that we want to be as expeditious in doing this as possible. My experience has been typically the candidates have come from within state government by and large. I think last time we didn't have, at least among the finalists, we didn't have anyone that was from outside. It is an interesting proposition, Mr. Fu. I appreciate you thinking out of the box. But I'm similar in my thoughts to Ms. Nystrom. If we were unsuccessful in the first round, finding a high quality candidate that we felt confident in, would be more comfortable making the expenditure at that point for a second round to bring in some different candidates. But those are my thoughts.
Any other board thoughts? We have a motion, and I'd like to open it up for public comment. This is regarding Dr. Phillips and Dr. Rogers on the selection and recruitment committee. Mr. Moderator, can you please open up public comment?
We are open for public comment via WebEx on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And as a reminder, if you're having trouble with that hand button, you can always type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request online, I think we're ready to check the rooms.
Thank you. Any other board comment? Any public members in your rooms that have comment? I'm not seeing any movement. Ms. Whitney, can you please call the roll?
Suga?
Aye.
Montes? Fu?
Aye.
Sheets? Nystrom? Aye. Phillips?
Aye.
Scate?
Aye.
Rogers? Aye. Tate?
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Mr. Payne, do I need a motion to change the timeline?
We will get into that once we go over the announcements. So if you...
perfect. Take it away, Mr. Payne.
Okay. Well, thank you. Next, I'd like to review and go over the duty statement and recruitment announcement drafts that are part of the agenda. Both the duty statement and the recruitment announcement have been updated by the Office of Human Resources to bring standard language current. And the duty statement was reviewed by former Executive Officer Sorik before departing, and she provided some input and minor changes to that duty statement. So I hope you had the opportunity to review the duty statement. At this time, I would like to ask the board members if they had any changes or any questions on the contents of the Executive Officer duty statement for the Psychology Board.
Any comments from the board? Thoughts?
I had a couple of comments. One, when they listed the committees, and if I go back to the document, I can find it more easily. When they listed the committees on page, I guess it was page 1, there was an indication of a licensure committee, legislative and regulatory affairs and communication. Do we only include the standing committees, or do we include any special committees?
We can include whatever committees you would like to be added to the duty statement if you believe it'll be more transparent and clear. Former Executive Officer Surik was the one that made the changes to that portion.
Okay. I would suggest we add at least the enforcement committee to that, but I don't know if anybody else has any other feelings on that. and the other suggestion I had was related to, let me scroll to it. Actually, I think it may be in the other document, so I will say that I only had that one comment.
Thank you.
Any other board comment regarding the duty statement? Okay, would you like to continue with the recruitment statement?
Yes, just to clarify, I want to make sure on the recommendation to add the enforcement committee, I'll direct that to your legal counsel to see if that requires a motion and a vote by the board.
Okay, thank you.
This is Anthony. No, you don't need a motion or action for that.
Great. Thank you for confirming. So next we will review the recruitment announcement, and please refer to the desirable qualifications section. And I ask at this time if you had any changes to that portion of the recruitment flyer. And those will be the desirable qualifications that the search committee will be basing against the applications that they receive for the position.
Mr. Fu's hand went straight up. Go ahead. You're on mute, though.
Thank you. It's not actual comments to the posting. I'm just curious. I know we received these documents, but I don't see them in the public materials for the agenda.
Okay.
In the hand carry. And so, Mr. Payne, how does that affect what we're trying to do today?
Thank you, Mr. Fu. Well, again, this document is going to be posted for however long it's going to be. As I understand it, this is going to be the public facing application or duty statement. Is that correct, Ms. Trejo?
Correct. Both the announcement and the duty statement. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if Mr. Fu, if your question is, does this need to be formally adopted? It's going to be publicly posted for 30 days or 21 days or whatever. So from a transparency perspective, that is not going to be a concern.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any other, oh, I see Dr. Phillips. I see your hand.
Okay, and scrolling back to the document in question. There were a couple comments I had here. One was under desirable qualifications and experience on page 2 of the document. It says experience with diversity, including but not limited to race, gender, and age. I know that later in the document, there is a statement identifying all the different aspects of personal identity that we would be concerned with. I think it's at the very end of the document. I was just wondering why those three were separated out for purposes of making the description of the qualifications necessary.
There was no purpose in separating those out under the first bullet. I know in the past we use a similar template with other recruitments with other board for their executive officers. So sometimes they incorporate additional information and we just carry that forward to provide you or anyone who will be doing an executive officer recruitment the opportunity to, maintain that, keep it, add to it, or delete it altogether.
Okay.
And that was the first bullet that you were referring to under desirable qualifications.
I don't know if it would make it more explanatory if we included all the aspects of identity that were included in the final paragraph of the document. What do other board members think about that idea?
Oh,
think,
go ahead, Dr.
um,
Castillo.
sorry. I agree. Also I think that when we talk about, let me go back to the document, sorry. When we talk about diversity, I think that we're talking about inclusivity, right? So
Correct.
I think that it's more clear to say diversity and inclusivity rather than just diversity and naming all the different identity kind of like areas or the different identities that are being considered as part of diversity.
So making it more general, pinpoint and not pinpoint specific ones under the first bullet.
Include inclusivity. That way it's explicit that we're considering inclusivity.
Okay.
Anyone else have comments, thoughts? Ms. Nystrom, I think you had your hand up.
Hi, this is Board Member Nystrom. I appreciate the comments on the diversity and inclusivity. I think, especially since there's a paragraph towards the bottom that expands on that, just keeping it more general up top is okay. One question I did have is on the desirable qualifications and experience. How does that differentiate from required qualifications and experience?
So this
are there required qualifications? Sorry.
No, sorry to jump in. So this is an exempt position within the state of California. It's not the typical civil service classification. So the requirements is not a mandate for these type of positions. So there's not minimum qualifications like you would see in another civil service classification that they have to have a degree or, for example, so many years of experience doing X, Y, and Z. There's more flexibility with these exempt positions.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Phillips.
Yes. I think that's a great way to handle it, to just take out the specific examples in the initial possible qualifications and experience, because I assume we're trying to keep those as like brief bullet points as opposed to full paragraphs. And then they will be included, they're included at the end of the document in terms of all the different attributes that people could have. So I think that is a great suggestion. I did have one other comment if we would. Should I give my other comment now?
Please.
Okay. My other comment was whether we want to ask for we have the interested persons must submit the following. That's on page 3, the top of the page. I was wondering if we wanted to ask for a writing sample separate and apart from the application that they file and the statement of qualifications. The reason I ask about that is that was a determinant in the board's discussion last time we went through the selection process. Maybe asking for a writing sample of their professional writing for no more than 2 pages or 3 pages. Because I think it is an important aspect of the position that people be able to communicate in writing very clearly. And I think the more writing examples we have, the better off we're going to be in terms of being able to determine their command of that particular type of material.
That could be an option. Sorry if you don't mind me jumping in. That definitely can be an option that we place on the bulletin, and my office can work behind the scenes with the search committee on specific language they're asking of the candidates to submit and finalize this. It can also be part of the initial interviews, so you would have that requirement of those that are invited for the initial interview to kind of, hone in on those writing skills of the individuals. So either way would be fine on my end.
Great. Any other board comment regarding the recruitment announcement? Okay, I'm just double checking, see if I see any hands up. Oh, Dr. Kasuga.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify my earlier suggestion, which is in line with what Dr. Phillips said. So on the, because I was having difficulty looking for the announcement. So on the desirable qualifications and experience, we're going to remove the including but not limited to, but I'm hoping we can add experience working with diversity and inclusivity. And then the experience shall include policy advisement or action in affirming culture. And then all the examples are addressed in the bottom. So that was my suggestion. And I also wanted to state that I am in agreement with Dr. Phillips on the suggestion about requesting sample writing. I'm a big proponent of looking at someone's writing style because it is a big part of the job to be able to convey and communicate really well.
And do you have a preference on when that is submitted, with the application package or during initial interviews?
I think, as you know, as part of like the initial would be good because then, you know, like it's a big consideration.
Dr. Phillips, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think it'll help us to screen. Obviously, if someone's writing sample does not appear particularly professional, for example, that will make it much easier for us to screen people out.
Okay. And Ms. Trejo, you can add that to your list.
Yes, that it'll be part of the application to submit a writing example. And then I'll reach out to the...
And can we say not to exceed 3 pages? Because somebody sent us 500 pages last time.
Oh my gosh.
Or some multiple hundreds of pages. It was quite overwhelming.
Yes, we can put those parameters, and I can send the search committee the final draft once I make those changes as discussed during today's meeting, just to ensure everything is captured correctly before it is posted.
Great, thank you.
Any other board comment on the recruitment announcement before we open it up for public comment? Perfect. Mr. Moderator, can we open up public comment for agenda item 3C? This is review and possible action on the revised EO duty statement and recruitment announcement.
I apologize. Before we go into public comment, I wanted to confirm the time frame that we would like to have this advertised. As I mentioned, we said 30 days is typical, but not a requirement. And so I heard someone mention maybe 14 days, 21 days. So I wanted to bring that up as a discussion point.
Okay, I just from my personal perspective, I would love to see something between 14 and 21 so we could expedite this and get this on our November agenda. Dr. Phillips, you have thoughts?
Yeah, I would prefer the 21 days. I think that allows enough time for people to contemplate whether they want to apply for the position and also for them to get all their paperwork together. If somebody were out of, somebody in state service, for instance, didn't see the job posting till week 2, it would leave them a very short period of time to be able to pull all those materials together. So I think that would be a reasonable amount of time and would help to expedite the process by at least 9 days.
Any other board members have thoughts, perspectives? Dr. Rogers?
I just wanted to say that I'm in agreement with that. 21 days sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips.
Okay. Any other comment? Does 21 days sound reasonable to the board? Okay. Let me see. Ms. Trejo, is this something that you can implement, or do we need a motion also for this?
I'll defer that to your legal counsel, but it's something that I can definitely incorporate if there's no motion needed.
Okay.
Yeah, this is board counsel. Yeah, there's no motion needed for that.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Phillips. You have a comment or a hand up? Oh, okay. Okay. Mr. Moderator, going back, can we open up public comment for agenda item 3C? This is review and possible action on revised EO duty statement and recruitment announcement, please.
Absolutely. We are open for public comment on 3C. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users, dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. As a reminder to those who might have trouble, you can type the word comment into the Q&A box, and for our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... and cycle through the 3 different pages in order to find your hand. Looking around, I see no request for public comment at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Coming back, agenda item 3D, Ms. Trejo.
And I apologize. I jumped ahead on the agenda items, so we have already selected the search committee, so my apologies for that.
Yes, I see that, but I just want to make sure you said it. We hit it on the agenda.
Yeah,
just for clarification, we have Dr. Phillips and Dr. Rogers who are going to be on the EO selection committee, and we've already taken public comment on that item. So at this point, the board will be going into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 11126 C3 to discuss and take possible action on the selection process and appointment of an acting or an interim EO. We will also be meeting pursuant to Government Code Section 11126 C3 to discuss disciplinary matters, including petitions for reinstatement, modification, or early termination, proposed decisions, stipulations, and remands. When we finish closed session today, we will be coming back into open session to report the actions regarding the acting or interim EO appointment. So thank you. We're going into closed session at this time.
All right, this is the moderator. Bear with me just a moment.
And moderator, I will also be going into closed session. Just wanted to flag that for you.
Perfect. Thank you and welcome back. It's 11:38 and the Board of Psychology is returning back from closed session. Ms. Whitney, can you please call the roll?
Kasuga.
Here.
Here. Cervantes. Sue. Harbsheets. Nystrom. Here. Phillips.
Here.
Frascati.
Here.
Rogers. Here. Tate.
Here. Thank you, and quorum is established. We are going to take up agenda item 6. This is report on actions taken during closed session regarding acting or interim EO appointment. The board met in closed session and has made a selection as an interim EO at this time. The announcement will be made in the future. Mr. Payne, do I need to add anything else to that?
Oh, it sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, and with that information, I am moving on to agenda item number 7. This is consideration of and possible action on comments received, if any, during the 15-day comment period for the modified proposed text to amend Title 16 CCR sections 1391.13 and 1391.14, inactive psychological associates registration and reactivating a psychological associate registration. Mr. Polk, please.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tate. The inactive package is currently in the final stages, which includes final approval from the Office of Administrative Law. This regulatory package would allow a psychological associate to request that the board place their active registration in inactive status when the registrant has no primary supervisor. And while the registration is in the inactive status, it would stop the time counting towards the cumulative time of 6-year registration limitation. In discussions with the Office of Administrative Law, there was questions regarding the previously approved language. Staff, in working with Regulatory Counsel, withdrew the regulatory package to modify the language with minor changes to make it clearer and more concise for registrants based on specific advice received from the Office of Administrative Law. On August 16th, the board approved the modified text with the minor changes, which is included in the meeting materials as attachment 1 for this item. And the board directed staff to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process, which included submitting the regulatory package for an additional 15-day public comment period. The 15-day modified text comment period began on August 27th and concluded on September 11th. No public comments were received during the 15-day comment period, so this agenda item is an informational item, and staff will be working with Regulatory Counsel to get the package resubmitted to the Office of Administrative Law for final review and approval. That includes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. Any board comment? Mr. Moderator, can you please open up public comment for agenda item number 7?
We are open for public comment on agenda item 7. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder for our mobile device users, you have 3 different screens and only one of them has a hand button, so you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... at the bottom, and cycle through your 3 different screens. If you are having trouble finding your hand button, and you can find the Q&A button, there we have a question and answer section where you can type the word comment, and I'll put you in the queue that way. People will be given 2 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 30-second warning before your time expires. We're going to wait just a couple more seconds before we continue. Seeing no request for public comment, I think we should check the rooms to see if anyone's available there.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just double checking any other board comment or any public commenters in any of the rooms. Okay. Before we are moving on to adjournment, I'd like to give Ms. Whitney a moment to let us know how much CPD credit everyone has earned today. Ms. Whitney, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Thank you. So for attending the board meeting today, you will receive 2.5 hours for your participation under CPD category number 1, attendance at a Board of Psychology meeting. For your records, please notate today's date as September 13th, 2024, and the name of today's meeting, which is board meeting. If you called in, again, please email bopce@dca.ca.gov with your name, license number, and phone number used to call in. If when you signed in, you see your name, you do not need to provide us any other information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitney. And thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. And we hope to see you at our next board meeting in November. Thank you to everyone and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Tate and everybody.
Thank you.